All right, we're thrilled to have Coach Sark here. I mean, what a treat to give us the latest on the Texas Longhorns. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
I just before we get going, I just want to talk about last year. I mean, I know we fell short of the goal, right? But 2 straight trips to the semifinals. You're right there to get to a national championship. When you remove yourself from the season a bit more, it has to feel like an extremely huge accomplishment, right? Like for me, it does 100%. It still stings, I'm sure.
It totally stings. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like I had to go in my cubbyhole there for a couple of days. But sometimes I reflect not only on this year, but I reflect on kind of the 4-year journey to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because I think back to 5 and 7. I think back to no players drafted at the end of that year.
It's not like you started on third base.
No. Yeah, no. We had to bunt. We had to get guys on base. We had to do all sorts of things.
Yes.
To get to 8 and 5 in year 2 and keep grinding away, and then in year 3 to win the Big 12 in our final year, which was a huge deal for us, right? Because we hadn't won it since you.
Yeah.
So you think about that for a second. So that was the 2023 season. It's been 14 years.
Yeah.
And then so to win the Big 12, get to the college football playoff and be 1 play away from the national championship game, go into Alabama and beat Alabama on the road for only time ever Nick Saban got beat at home by double digits. Like,
crazy.
There's really cool things that happen. Like I have to kind of reflect a little bit. And then going into this last year, like there was so much concern. We had just had 11 guys drafted. And it was like, how are you going to replace Byron Murphy? How are you going to replace Tavondre Sweat? How are you going to replace Jordan Whittington? How are you going to replace Xavier Worthy? How are you going to replace AD? What do you got? Texas is they're going into the SEC. They're not going to be ready for this and all the things. And next thing you know, we're in overtime in the SEC championship game. We're number 1 team in the country for a few weeks there in the middle of the season. We go back to the college football playoff. We're in the semifinals. We're a play away from going to the national championship again. Yeah. The season ends. We just sent 14 guys to the NFL Combine, and I'm hearing the same stuff. Like, they're not going to be able to do it again. How are they going to replace all these guys? But that, to me, we were just talking about this offline. It's like we built a program here that year in and year out, I think can withstand. Now, granted, we've signed some really good players. We just signed the number 1 class in the country, and there's an influx of these young players. We don't live in the transfer portal, but we utilize it. I mean, we've signed 5 guys in the portal. We're getting coaching turnover now more than ever because of attrition, and guys are getting great opportunities. Yeah. But I get to bring in really good coaches too, some young, some old. I got Dwayne Akina back on board. Yeah, he's awesome, man. So it's like, I really feel like this is exactly where we're supposed to be. I didn't know how many years it would take. To where every time people are talking about who potentially might win the national championship, our names, if not, we're at the top of the list. We're 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going anywhere. It's kind of like we've built this thing the right way, and now I don't want to just sustain it. I want to keep finding ways to keep getting better.
How is the feeling inside or around the program? I'm not talking about out here. I'm saying inside with the players.
We're in Moncrief
having the successes you've had the last couple of years. Like, I got to feel like the guys who didn't play a bunch are chomping at the bit to get out there. We may not even know who the guys are that are going to step up and play, but I've told us a couple of people that there's nobody better in the country that recruits and retains talent and builds a program the way that you're doing it now versus the way everyone else is doing it.
Yeah,
right? You're still able to go target guys, and a lot of those guys, honestly, are going to have to step up and play. And so I would think the successes of the last couple of years, everybody's bought in.
Yeah, I think we didn't want to be a one-hit wonder team. And, I monitor it all, and I see guys go out and sign 18, 20, 24 transfers, and it's kind of like, that might work, it might not. But then if you're going to have to try to do it again and again, and that's really hard to do, where we try to believe in bringing guys in as freshmen and build them up in our culture and develop them. And then where you have those voids, kind of find your transfers, along the way. But, it's interesting. I was talking to the staff about this today. Like, everybody has to be better this year than they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about it that way, right, think about the true freshman who redshirted, who was on scout team, who played with great effort, but yet had MAs and didn't know the system. Well, now those MAs, we're not going to tolerate.
That's right.
Because we're going to need him on Saturday. And the guy that was the special teams player that was maybe a second stringer that got 10 snaps on defense, well, now I need him to play 30 snaps.
Yep.
And the guy that was playing 30, now I need to play 45, and I need to be a leader in that locker room.
Yeah.
And so everybody has to kind of make those necessary jumps in their journey. And the coaches do too, right? I mean, we have to adapt. We have to evolve. We can't just rinse and repeat this thing and expect it to go. We've got a whole new team. Just right now in spring alone, I have 22 kids that should still be in high school that are enrolled on our campus, freshmen.
That's crazy.
And 5 transfers. So that's 27 new faces, but I'd much rather have them now than in June. And so the process is underway, right? Every team takes on a personality of its own. Leadership changes, different voices start to arise in the locker room, and some guys leave and now the next guys step in. And so that's the beauty of college football, very different from the NFL that way, and that we have looking and staring at these guys, and finding the right pieces to the puzzle, staffing wise.
Sure.
Aquino was very strategically brought back. When we lost Gideon and Joseph, I said I needed a veteran coach to go along with Mark Orfe, who's a really good young DB coach, but I needed a veteran voice back there. Same with Chad Scott on the offense side of the ball and recruitability. Where do they recruit? Well, there's so many pieces to this thing. But in the end, I wouldn't trade us for anybody. Yeah. I love where we're at as a program, the support we're getting from administration, from CDC and Chairman Eltife, the ability that we've expanded our recruiting department in that aspect. We're building a new indoor. We're going to get out of the bubble at some point.
I just drove by that the other day. That is going to be incredible.
So the support's incredible from administration. I think we've assembled, like I said, a great staff, a great roster. And I don't know if, probably since you were playing, I don't know if Longhorn Nation has been more connected on supporting the program and what we're trying to do. Season ticket sales are the highest they've been in maybe ever. I think we're up to like 78,000 season ticket holders, which is crazy. One of the cooler moments last season when we beat Clemson in the first round of the playoffs, to sing the Eyes of Texas to a capacity crowd at DKR was pretty incredible. That was the first time that's happened since I've been here. I was like, this is pretty awesome, man. Yeah. Everybody's on board, and we're going to kick in the door here, hopefully sooner rather than later, man.
You're knocking on the door.
Fun.
Yeah,
it's going to be fun.
Looking at the transfer portal, NIL, and what's the major differences coaching in this era versus coaching 5 years ago? Yeah,
I mean, just even look at the last 3 years of college football, there's always been change in college football, right? But the change we've gone through has been pretty remarkable. And we got more change to go, right? We're talking about revenue sharing. We're talking about changing portal windows. I think one of the things for us that was extremely challenging this year, the whole month of December, while we were in the college football playoffs, it was essentially free agency in college football.
Man, so I came to
every player on our roster is a free agent. Every player on our team could have went in that portal, and we had 9 guys go in at that time. Then the portal closed. Then because we played beyond the portal closing, after January 10th, our players were exempt to. They got 5 more days to go in the portal, which then we were only 4 teams left. So 130 other teams are staring at our roster.
Oh my gosh.
And so you talk about retention with your own players. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of portal, is making sure we keep the right players on our team. The second part is, for us, when we deal with the portal, we're about filling needs. Like I touched on earlier, I'm about building our roster from the ground up and bringing in high school kids, developing them on our program, getting them engulfed in our culture, into our schemes. But yet, the portal has provided an opportunity to, when you do have attrition at a specific position, it's called defensive line, because of graduation, because of transfers of our own right, because of injuries, because of maybe we just missed the mark on a kid and didn't recruit the right kid at the right time, that you have the opportunity to fill those voids. And we've done it 2 years in a row at that position in particular, right? Where we've brought in some veteran players that have been helpful for us there, but we really don't major there. And again, I think NIL has been good for the University of Texas. I'm not going to sit up here and say that it hasn't. It's been good to us. It's been good to a lot of programs. I think that we've managed it the right way. I think we're fair with our players. I think when we think a guy is overpriced, we let him go, whether they're our own or whether it's another guy that maybe we're competing with another school with. We look at the value of the player on our roster and where he might sit, and then we put a number on it, and it is what it is, and it's definitely an NFL model and approach that we have. But that's forever changing, right? And we'll see where this whole thing lands. But Again, I think NIL has been good for the University of Texas. For a long time, NIL may have existed, just not at the University of Texas.
Right, no.
But now that when they regulated it, and the fact that we got a seat at the table to compete at that level for some of the high level players, it's been good to us, and we try to maximize it, take advantage of it within the scope of the rules. And like I said, I think we benefited from it.
Well, I think it's an advantage for us too, in that you were in the NFL and you were successful in the NFL, and you saw how a salary cap was managed. You saw how a team was built, and that's trickled down into college football now. You got to have some idea of how that works on that level. This is a different space, but how we can navigate all those things. There's not a whole lot of coaches across the country who have been able to see both worlds. Well,
it's been helpful. I was surrounded by some really good people when I was in the NFL. I was with Dan Quinn. Raheem Morris was on that staff as well.
Love Raheem.
Raheem was a great coach. Thomas Dimitroff was the GM. I've become really good friends with Howie Roseman with the Eagles. And why can the Eagles have all those great players, and why can they pay Saquon Barkley what they paid him this offseason, and have already paid Jalen Hurts, and they're paying Jalen Carter, and they're paying Devontae Smith, and they're paying AJ Brown? Their salary cap's the same as everybody else's. Yeah. But you gotta manage it, and you gotta place a premium on certain things that matter to you as a program, and that's what we've tried to do. And we've tried to really assess that year in and year out of what they do, and how does Kansas City do it every year, right? How are they doing it every single year and remake themselves and rebrand themselves year after year? How does Sean McVay do it in LA? How's Kyle Shanahan doing that in San Francisco? Although they had a down year this year, how do they do it year after year? How did Belichick do it in New England year after year? And so when you study those guys, I don't want to say there's a science to it, but there's mechanisms that you can do as long as you know who you are. I feel like so many teams struggle when they don't know and they're just grab bagging.
Yeah.
And then they're reactionary instead of forward thinking. And we try to be forward thinking to make sure that we got the right nucleus of people in an organization. And the old adage is simple, right? Never sacrifice character for talent. There's a lot of talented players, but if you believe in culture, you got to make sure that you look at the character too.
When you talk about transitioning into this year, like as a coach, just explain to me or to us when you flip the switch from like, okay, let's take a lot from last year.
Yeah.
Things we did well, things we didn't do well. We're self-scouting as coaches. We're also getting new players to fill the voids. But as a team, is it day one of spring ball? Is it the off-season program when they come back into January? Like for me, in playing in the NFL 14 years, the hardest part was it's over.
Yeah.
Everything I did this year is over. Let me go back and watch and learn and grow, work on some of the things I need to work on. But when I come back, it's a new team. There'll be 15 or 20 new guys in here, right? And you gotta develop that relationship again. You gotta get ready to play, and then you gotta get yourself ready. Mentally, that's a challenge. So going back-to-back semifinals, how do you, as a coach, get everybody to flip the switch?
Obviously, to your point, we're forever evolving on this, right? I mean, it never ends. Like we're still doing self-scout, we're still doing cut-ups,
and there still may be a guy or two that comes in potentially, maybe if we, that's how this portal works. Football now. Yeah.
So for Coach Beckton, it was interesting when you hear his perspective, right? So for we played January 10th. Those first 2 weeks, we were in school. He was just working with all the new faces, right? The high school kids, the transfers. We gave the returning players those first 2 weeks off. Think about this. They got 2 weeks off.
It's crazy.
And then we started winter conditioning.
Yeah.
And they went for 4 weeks without us, without coaches. I gave the coaches a couple weeks off. We needed a break. We needed to take a break. And the players probably didn't want to see us either. They were like, we just played 16 games. These guys yelling at us.
16 games. That's so crazy.
And what was interesting to him, he said it took all the way into about the third week for the players to kind of get out of the blues of last season. So when we came in as a staff, now we've had them for 3 weeks. So now this is part of our 7 weeks up until spring break before we start spring ball. They've been awesome, man. Like this team is energized. They're talented. We are talented, but probably more important is like they're really hungry. I always refer to like they were. A lot of these guys were puppies. The last 2 seasons, and now they're like the grown-up dog, but still has the energy of the puppy. So these guys are flying around. The winter workouts are competitive. There's been great leadership. Arch, he's ready to be the leader. Like, you could feel it. Michael Taft has been an awesome leader. Anthony Hill's been a great leader. Trevor Gooseby is a natural leader. Even though he's only started a few games for us, you can feel his presence. DeAndre Moore has been a great leader. Manny Muhammad. Colin Simmons is already kind of there. So we're probably returning more production than people want to give us credit for. But yet, man, this is a group of really young, talented players that they want to be the group that kicks in the door.
Sure.
They know it's somebody's going to do it.
Yeah.
These guys want to be the group that gets it done.
Let's talk about Arch. How important was him being able to play 3 games last year?
Huge, man.
Huge.
I think first, anytime you're a backup and you have to go into a game and really play in the game, not the fourth quarter, you're up by 30, hey, get in there and hand the ball off and throw a couple quick outs. Like, he had to play, which was good. Then he had to prepare for 2 weeks to be the starter. And in one of those weeks was our SEC opener against Mississippi State. Like, this wasn't just so hey, bud, this one like really counts.
Yes.
And man, I think we saw some really things. A, we saw athleticism that was probably surprised a lot of people. B, his ability to throw the deep ball and the deep ball in our system and how important that is to take advantage of those one-on-one opportunities was huge. Third, the leadership. Like, this guy's got a charismatic, it's
attractive
him. Like,
to everybody.
You can feel it. Like, there's definitely, and that's not a knock against Quinn. Everybody needs differently, but he's got something about him that guys gravitate to. And that's always a great thing to have as a quarterback, because it's like a coach. I can know all the stuff I want to know and I can lead, but you want the players to want to play for you, not in spite of you or despite you. And that's the same as a quarterback. You want those guys to want to play even better because of who you are, right? Not like, I'll do it because I need to do it for me, man. They want to do it. And I think Arch has that about him. But, man, he's talented and nobody works harder. Nobody's in the film room more. I mean, his uncles are who they are because of it. But he's just got this, like...
He wants to carve it for his own.
Yeah,
I mean,
he does,
it's
man.
clear.
He does, and thank God he got his grandpa's athleticism, He's definitely... He can move, and so I'm excited for him. He's been patient. How many people have come after him from other schools to get him to transfer?
Can't imagine.
And he stayed the course and stayed true to his word, so we're pumped about him.
The last thing, tell us just a little bit about this 2025 squad we're going to see. A lot of holes to fill. Yeah. A lot of areas that guys are going to have to step up and play, but that's the beauty of the culture and the team and the retaining talent and building a program. That's what it's all about. I can't wait to see it. Yeah. Just give us a little.
Super hungry. Yeah. Sometimes like we were last year, we were kind of an old guard, especially on the line of scrimmage. We had a lot of older players on the.
That was what I was going to say is like the guys that are getting drafted up front and the guys on the that have played a ton, right? They've played so many snaps. You said
really
hungry.
A quarterback, you have a third
quarterback
starter,
too, right? But all that in front of them is going to change. Yeah.
So now we're kind of like. You remember you were in the 7th grade? Do you have 6th through? How'd your
started football in 7th grade, 7th, 8th grade.
Yeah.
6th, 7th, 8th is junior high.
Yeah, junior
6th grade you don't play. You play in 7th grade.
So you remember 7th grade, you were like the 8th graders were the cool kids.
Oh yeah.
But you were like really hungry, but you only Well, I feel like I got a group of 8th graders that are like, this is finally it. We've been waiting our turn. Well, a lot of them are in their 3rd year. The Anthony Hills of the world, the Derek Williams, the Manny Muhammads, the Andre Moores, the Arches, like the Cedric Baxters, like all these guys that are like super hungry. And they're like, they just want to do right. Like, tell me what to do next. And they do it 100 miles an hour. Sometimes we're like, let's slow down. Let's get it right. And that's part of the reason spring ball is going to go the way we're going to go. Like, we've got to make sure we build a really solid foundation with this team and then grow quickly. Because these guys want to grow really fast. They want to go.
Ready.
We got a long way to go till we're in Columbus, Ohio for that first game against the defending national champs. So they're going to get their time. We got to make sure we build it the right way throughout spring and throughout summer.
That's so good. Well, I can't thank you enough for giving us some insight.
This is awesome, man.
Yeah, into the Texas program. What you're doing, what you have done is incredible. I mean, for me, it's just you're right there. You're knocking on the door. You've built a program. You've built a program that is just phenomenal. And just as a fan now, I love watching. I'm excited about Arch. I'm excited about just where this program is and what you get to do and the impact you're making on them. You're setting them up for success. And these guys are saying, I've got 15 teammates of mine that are about to get drafted to the NFL. If I go out and do my job and do what my coaches tell me to do, and we win football games, like, it's going to happen for me too.
It's
so the analogy of 7th to 8th grade makes a whole lot of sense to me. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you got any questions about the 2025 Texas Longhorns, throw them on there. Thanks for all you do, man. Thanks for coming on.
It's awesome. Appreciate you.
Yep.
It's fun.